Hello, and welcome back to Black Doctors Speak podcast. This is the next installment in our Addressing Youth Mental Health series. Today, our guest is Dr. Renee Baker, and she is a psychologist, and she is just fabulous. You'll hear all about her soon. So let's just jump right into it. So, Bernita, how are you today?
I am pretty amazing. How are you today?
I am fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us and addressing this very, very, very important issue, as you know. And today we are talking about social media, the upside and the downside when it pertains to our youth and their mental health. And I know, as a mother, as a doctor, I know you know how important this is. So, in what ways can social media have a positive impact on the mental health and development of youth today? Do you think?
So I believe that there are a myriad of ways that social media can have a positive impact on youth today. I think there is a wealth of information at their fingertips, right? And so whereas we back in the day, I had to go to the encyclopedia or, go and look up something on the World Wide Web or what have you, they can just go there and know be in the know of up to date information about what's going on in the world, what's going on in their families, what's going on in the school systems across the board. And so I think from that aspect, the resources that are readily available for youth today via social media, I think that is definitely a benefit. But then on the flip side of it, I believe that it just depends on how you use social media. And unfortunately, the youth are not using it for as many resources as they possibly can.
Right. And then of course we have the other side of it, of course, the children that are using it for, hurting other kids and, bullying and all of that. So but yeah, you're right. There is people ask me all the time about things and I'm like, "Did you Google it?" And they think I'm crazy and I'm like, "But you could have found the answer in 2
Right.
seconds had you just
Yeah.
Googled it." And the youth crack me up. I didn't know how to. Did you Google it?
Yeah. Yeah.
There is probably an instruction video on YouTube on how to do
Mhm.
exactly that. So, what are some of the most common mental health challenges you've seen in the young people that are directly linked to social media usage?
Slacking.
I know I peeped. Hold on one second.
Most common mental health challenges that I've seen personally with young people that are directly linked to social media usage is definitely depression. Depression, bipolar, and trying to make sure that they are staying in the know with everybody else and feeling like they're not behind. They don't have everything that, everybody on the internet has, or they're not living the lifestyle that everybody else has. And so we know that social media really only highlights the reels of our lives, right? We know that it doesn't show in the flows or the not so great times of our lives. And so I definitely believe that a lot of young people are battling with depression because what they're viewing on the internet is not necessarily a reality. It's not a thing. I think it has definitely complicated their thought process about what hard work looks like. Like you can't become successful overnight. I mean, we've heard some, stories have to put in the work. And so I believe that a lot of youth are battling with, it's an identity crisis. I think for the most part, it's an identity crisis because oftentimes they are trying to be something that they might not necessarily be, or trying to compare themselves to others, or just again trying to keep up. And that plays into your psyche.
Right.
It plays into your psyche, and not just for young people, but for adults as well. And so, when you're a young person and you don't necessarily have the maturity, the life experience, the emotional regulation, it's really hard to try to balance all of that and to be okay with who you are and how you've been set up in the world, where you, the family background, the dynamics that you've come from, the neighborhood that you live in, all of those things. So they end up battling a lot of those variables.
Definitely. I totally agree. And like you said, there are some adults that don't quite have that, the tools to deal with that either, or the thought process to, realize that this is not necessarily their everyday life. So, how can parents and caregivers help guide the children toward healthier social media habits without completely saying no?
I have a 7-year-old, and I swear she's addicted to YouTube, right? I swear she's getting all of her information, all of her knowledge from there. But I deal with the fine, I battle with the fine line between help letting her be technology savvy because, on one end, although she's navigating the social media apps, she also knows how to put the phone onto the television and maneuver the screen from there. All the things that I don't know how to do at this age and stage in life, right? And so I think that also having healthy conversations with our children about the impact of screen time and how you have to pull away and helping them reprioritize what their priorities are. And just having that, getting back to family time. When you go out to dinner, you see everybody on their phones, right? Everybody's sitting at the dinner table and everybody has a phone. And so I think taking breaks from the electronics is essential. It is imperative. It is necessary. And I think just monitor, as much monitoring as possible that you can do, because again, we don't want to overparent, if you will. We definitely want to give our young people space and grace to be able to explore those things. But I think having more conversations about, hey, what are they do? What's trending on TikTok right now? What's trending on Facebook? What's trending on Instagram? What's the news? Like, let's talk about things outside of the bullying, the nonsense, the drama, all of those things, and the lewd and lascivious videos that they have access to. I think a lot of that, the murders, all the news, and all of those things. And so I think having some kind of filter where we can really, you know, filter out what they're watching, what they have access to, and all of those things. And I think for teenagers, of course, it's just very tricky because you
Hmm.
give your teenagers opportunities, to have access. They have those phones. Parents are not with them majority of the time. So I think that going back to having those conversations and prioritizing their mental health and just pulling back from the screen time because it's important. And too much of anything is not good for anyone, right? Whether you're a young person or whether you're an adult. And so I think having those conversations about self-care and the value of what you're taking in from the internet. As an adult, I can't take in everybody's problems or everybody's words on a regular basis, right? And so understanding the value of what you're feeding into your mind, your heart, your body, and your soul. I think we have to start having those kinds of healthy conversations with our young people because we can't expect them to just evolve into adults and then have those skills down packed if we don't start now and really earlier on, because I am working on those types of skills with my 7-year old.
Exactly. And I think that to your point, I don't allow everyone's stuff in my feed. There's family members that I have blocked because I was like, no, this is not healthy. I can't have this. I don't want to take this in, the information you're putting out. I don't want to take that in every day. Um, I don't know if you've seen, but there is now a new thing called Instagram Teens. Have you seen the commercials for that?
Actually, I have not seen that.
Okay.
How long has it been out?
I don't know, but I've seen the commercials within the last 2 weeks, and basically they are, it'll automatically give the parents, I guess, you know, certain, I guess, pages they can't follow or something. There's restrictions around it. Apparently, there might be a timing restriction too, but it's a whole bunch of things, and it's specifically Instagram for parents. So this is something I think it just launched a few weeks ago, but the commercials now I've seen them a lot in the last 2 weeks. So I think that that'll probably be very helpful for teenagers. But then, like you said, you have a 7-year-old. So but back to the teens though. Recently, and I don't know if you've noticed, there's been a lot of missing teens. And a lot of them, they end up finding them alive. Thank you, Jesus. But you end up hearing the story that she met so and so online, and on this website or on Instagram or on Facebook or something, and then she decided to go meet this person in person. So I don't know what parents can do to avoid that, because that is crazy. Like, you 15 and you just decided to call an Uber or jump on the bus.
That is a very scary case. However, it's happening more and more these days, right? But I think it goes deeper than just the internet, right? Because if you have a child in your home who is comfortable enough to call an Uber and go and meet with somebody, that means that there is something going on in the home, right? That means that the fear of the parents are not going happening in the home, or that those conversations are not happening, right? About safety and what that looks like. And so I think again, it all goes back to the foundation. It all goes back to family conversations, conversations around family time around the dinner table, and really exposing our young people to the mishaps of what's happening out here in this world, right? And so again, I have a 7-year-old, but we're already watching documentaries about people, children getting kidnapped, right? This what happened if you stray away from your mom. My make sure you're covered up at all times, because they are all kind of pedophiles out here in the world, and you never know who's looking for children. So again, these are conversations that we're having. So she's at a all-time high alert, because not that she's afraid, but she's aware. And so I think that again, having conversations with our children and the relationships that we have with the children, that those kind of things stem from parenting relationships, because those types of situations occur um, in households where there's some kind of other disconnect. So I think that we
Mhm.
have to really go back to the root and not necessarily just blame it on social media. Because if it wasn't social media, it would be meeting somebody at the gas station, because that's what you wanted to do. And so again, I think our children need to be in counseling, and not because a crisis has happened, but because life is happening, and where they can get a outside neutral perspective that's not necessarily their parents. And so again, establishing that solid foundation and making sure that our young people are in wraparound activities and services so that they're busy. Like if you are locked in your room all day with your electronics, you know what I mean? You're looking for a place to escape. So it's easy to creep out the house and go to meet somebody who's alluring on a line, and it looks like they may be able to offer you a different experience in life. And so I think as parents, we have to be proactive. And of course, I'm the primary parent, so it's hard trying to do everything, right? It's hard when you have a parent who's working all the time and the children are tending to themselves and all of that. And again, we as parents have to figure out, or we as a community have to figure out how we can better engage our young people, so that they know that they have more options, so that that doesn't necessarily have to be your option, because you can be over here working in this program or volunteering over here, or surrounded by positive people and influences who will help you stay on the right path and not swerve off until paths that will ultimately lead to your demise or your destruction. So
Exactly.
does that answer your
Um,
question?
Oh, yes, definitely, definitely. And the other thing, when you said YouTube, I wanted you to tell, because there are some parents that don't know that there is a children's YouTube, so that it's kind of
There is.
monitored through Google. So could you tell parents like
Mhm.
how do they find that, and and tell them about it? Because I know I have a young lady that's she's a freshman in college now, but she started her YouTube channel at 11, I think, but she teaches kids how to code. So her YouTube channel is for kids.
Mhm. hmm And so there's definitely a YouTube channel for children. Again, you just YouTube kids, Google it. We Google everything. And so you can set that as your primary YouTube. And then I think also, as much as you can monitor what these children are doing, I'm pulling phones. Let me look at your phone. Let me look at your text message. Let me look at your history. Let me look at the sites that you are browsing. We can't give our children all the control. They are not paying those. Like, no, these are my rules. Your electronics belong to me, and I am regulating what's going on. And so I think having those checks and balances in place is important. And again, with the young adults, the teens, it gets a little bit more challenging. But I think that as a child, I can only speak about my own experiences, but I was afraid of my dad. So there were just certain things as a child that wasn't happening because I knew what type of household I was growing up in. And I know you were raised by your dad was in the household as well. And so I think instilling that fear, it's a healthy fear. Like you don't have to be
Right.
afraid of the streets, because you need to be afraid of me as a parent, right? And so for your own
Right.
good, if you will. And I'm finding that children these days, they're just out here as free agents. It's like the children are raising the parents. And so I really think we have to get back to the basics of not giving our young people so much access and so much power. If you're not
Right, because
excelling
there
in
are
school, you
parents that
don't
will
have
say they're
access to a
afraid of
phone.
their
A phone
kids.
is a privilege. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
about you. Yeah, so those are the types of things. And again, if you feel inadequate or ill-equipped as it relates to being a parent, and you don't feel like you have what it takes to give your child what you need, or to step in and do the things that need to be to discipline them, that's when it comes time to find a mentor. That's when it comes time to pull on your village, to tap into our churches, to tap into the local fraternities and the sororities, the Big Brother Big Sisters program. They need to be actively engaged. Make those children go outside. Children these days don't want to go outside because they're, again, in a room, booed up with their electronics. You need vitamin D. Get outside and go get some. Go do something constructive. It feels like gaming and electronics have taken over the spaces where it would have once been extracurricular activities, because children are deciding that they don't want the physical activity these days, right? And so
Right.
that's the easy way out, because you can sit up and play on, and it's taken away from their soft skills. It's taken away from their customer service skills, their personable skills, all of the things. And so I just think that we as adults have to do a better job of servicing our young people and raising the standard. Just because this is what everybody else is doing does not mean that this will be your portion. And so I think that for our households, if we are clear about what we are willing to allow and what we're not willing to allow, then our children will turn out a little bit better. But I think we have to be willing to step up to the plate and defy the odds and take back the power from these kids. Our children are too privileged these days. Even the ones that are not as privileged, having access to all these electronics. You have an iPad, a phone, a this or that. I didn't get a cell phone until I was out of college, right? I had paid my dues, got earned my degree, and then I had a cell phone, right? These kids got 3 and 4 electronic gadgets. And I mean, I'm guilty because my daughter has, again, an iPhone. I don't even have an iPhone. An iPhone, 2 iPads, and a laptop. Like, you're 7. What kind of business are you operating at the tender age of 7, if you will? And so I think we just have to limit what we have, and just limit what they have access to, and then we have to increase our level of engagement with them. It's easy for you to let the kid go off over there and be on their phone and do that while
Right.
you're doing everything else that you need to do. We got to bring it back to the way that we grew up, the way things used to be.
I didn't have a TV in my room ever. There isn't one when I go
Listen.
back to their house now.
And I don't think children deserve to. You come out in the central area and you watch television, so I can monitor what you're watching. It just
Exactly.
makes
And that
sense.
was my
And you know
mother's.
what? As a scholar, and I know you can identify with this, I don't even watch television because I feel like I probably put too much time and energy into being in school and reading books, that when I'm watching television, I feel like I'm wasting brain cells. Like, what did I just spend my time doing? And so I really believe I could live in my home without television, right? And so again, are children picking up books these days? Are they reading books? Like, I don't read it on your Kindle. Pull out a book and a highlighter and get back. The books were my escape as a child. Like, I was
Yes,
reading
me
a
too.
book and I was happy about it. And so again, I think just because times are changing, there are some things that we need to continue to implement because it's not working for our young people today. Too much access, too much privilege, too much not enough structure, too much leverage, too much power. And so I want to get back to the olden days.
Can you explain maybe some warning signs that parents could look out for if their child is possibly being negatively affected by social media?
I think when your child is withdrawn, anytime you have to ask your child twice, what are you watching? They don't hear you the first time. They're making up something in their head, to give you an answer. I think that anytime they don't want to be bothered or they're easily irritated, those are all signs. Those are all things that we need to pay attention to. Anytime it feels like they're sneaking off or they're being, their behavior has changed in any kind of way. We know our children. We know our children. And if you're tuned in and if you're an attentive parent, you know when your child, when the pattern has changed, when there's a different pathology that's taking place. And so don't ignore even the small signs. Don't ignore even the small signs. And again, stand on business when it comes to being the adult. These children will finagle us any way they can, right? Because that's what children do. They're going to use it to their best benefit to do whatever it is that they want to do. And so I think reminding them like I was once a teenager. Everything you did under the sun, I've already done, right? And so just reminding them like, what's done in the dark is ultimately going to come to the light. So I am going to find out what it is that you think you're trying to do. But no, I definitely think when children are withdrawn, especially our young girls, those are opportunities for us to start engaging even the more and start questioning them. I would much rather prefer to be a parent who is interrogating my child to the fullest than a parent who is not asking enough questions. So I'm asking all of the questions. When Bella's on the DVR or the VR, whatever it is, and I hear other people, I'm like, is that a man? Is that a boy? Who is that? I'm in it because I want to know. I need to know. There are chat rooms everywhere. So I don't know a whole lot about iPhones because I'm an Android user, but I'm like, let me see that phone. So we have to teach ourselves. And I think that technology is so advanced these days. I'm just like, okay, so I have to learn. So even if you have to teach me how to help you stay safe, let's do this together. And so make it a collective partnership, if you will.
Yeah, and I think so lastly, of course, we want to talk about
But you have to be
solutions.
intentional.
Definitely. And I think that, like you said, we want to talk about solutions, and you've already mentioned go back to the old school ways. But the one thing with these devices is there are
Mhm,
so many ways for you to have access to what's going on without even necessarily
mhm,
having their phone
mhm,
in your hand. There's ways for you to, so you need to figure all that out so that you can
mhm,
observe and see what's going on. Also, there's all the protections, just like I was talking about this new Instagram for teens, but there's all sorts of protections you can put on the different
mhm,
apps and stuff so that
mhm.
they can't, like unfortunately there was a young boy that bought he bought some drug off of TikTok and died. I forgot what it was.
Wow.
But there's ways that you can put protections on so that they can't purchase through the TikTok shop, or they can't, you know,
Mhm,
can't, or maybe they can't even do audio messages on whatever chat room or something. But there's protections for these things. So you need to just pay attention and figure it
mhm,
out. Google, you might have to pay for an extra app. Some of them, it's already in the app. You can put a restriction on it. I know every time I install a
mhm,
new Fire Stick on a TV, it says, do you need to put the parental controls on here? Every single time I install a Fire Stick, it
mhm,
asks me. And I'm like,
mhm,
nope, not on here. But if you are somebody at your house and that's how you guys watch TV, then you need to put the parental controls. So then when you're not at home and the kid is
and
watching
you
TV,
misdo
you
it.
know that they're not watching something they shouldn't be watching because you just never know.
Mhm.
Never.
And as a
It's
parent, I think in the midst of our busyness, we have to be willing to go the extra mile to implement those things. And again, with teenagers, it's a little tricky, but I think with teenagers, you have to start having more conversations with these young people because what you think they don't know or they don't have access to, they know. They have
right.
access to it, like more access than what we could have ever had back in the day. And so again, being uncomfortable having being getting comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations with our children is definitely important.
And then something else you said, and I think that is so important. Don't wait until there's a problem to seek therapy. Just, I think
Mhm.
honestly, I feel like every child going into middle school probably needs to be with a therapist because
I
middle
mean, just
school,
based upon puberty alone,
that's what
puberty
I'm
alone.
saying. That's when that transition happens and things go change. You go from being in one classroom to now you got a schedule and you got to get the classes and different
Mhm,
people. It's not that one class of kids that you had all day. Now you got different kids you got to interact with and different people, different. I think that every child should get into therapy in middle school. My little cousin, I won't forget.
coupled with the hair that's growing underneath your arms.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I just said all of those transitions that you just spoke about, coupled with the hair growing underneath your arms and coupled with the pubic hair that's coming, right? All of the things that's
Change
happening to
in
their
voice,
bodies when we know
all
that they
those.
are entering into that stage, all of it, where it's a mind blowing process. And if we haven't helped to prepare them, now we have more resources. We have more resources now more than ever before. So there is no reason that our children should be around seeking out information when it's at their fingertips, right? So we as parents have to do a better job of implementing these things and making sure that we are dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's, and being overbearing when it comes to parenting. Because again, our children are overbearing when it comes to being children, and so they're gonna hound you until they get what they want and how they want it. As parents, I think it is important that we insist that they perform at their highest level, which includes being mindful about their own safety and self care. And I don't know about you, Renee, but as a child, I didn't grow up thinking about self care. I didn't grow up being taught about self care and how to take care of myself before I took care of my friends, or, being a people pleaser, or all of those things. And I think all of that comes with the many nuances that are associated with social media, because again, you are inundated with so many messages. You need a boyfriend, you need a girlfriend, sex is on your mind, people are, the vaping and the smoking and all the drinking and all of the things, like the money, the videos, all of that stuff. And so there are enough conversations for dinner, every day of the week, right? Or once a week, we're having a powwow about what's going on in the news, or what's going on at your school, or what kind of issues are your classmates going through, and where are you? And so we as parents cannot be afraid or uncomfortable to tackle those conversations. And so there's great gifting in being able to have those conversations. Yeah, those critical conversations.
And definitely, I think the last thing I would say is you need to implement, if you guys are able to have dinner together every day, implement a no phone zone. And mom and dad have to agree to it too.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
or at least there has to be a time that you all sit down every day or something in a
Mm-hmm.
regular schedule, and you guys,
Mm-hmm.
no phones, and you have these conversations and you ask open-ended questions, not yes or no questions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
open-ended, so that you
Mm-hmm.
have an entire conversation, so you really know what's going on. Because those parents, unfortunately, that have lost their children to suicide, which we know, unfortunately, in the Black community, suicide rates in children has gone up tremendously in the last, 10 some so years. You need to have those open-ended conversations, because those parents that lost their kids said, well, he said everything was fine, and no, that's not an answer. Like, you need more than the word fine. You need sentences so that you know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what's going on.
Yeah.
So you can't, because the teachers are
Yeah.
overwhelmed. You can't rely on a teacher to come back and tell you or call you or whatever. And not every school has counselors anymore, unfortunately. So all these things that we used to have, we don't necessarily have
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So you really need to
True.
talk to the children and get complete sentences, not I'm fine. You need to you need to
Mm-hmm.
get a whole, it needs to be a whole 20, like the whole ride home from school should be a whole just dump, brain dump of everything that happened today. Just so that you have these conversations uninterrupted, like I said, no devices, and just talk. Because I think that that is something that I'm sure that most of those parents that have lost their children would say was missing, was that they didn't know what was going on. They had no idea that there was one kid that was constantly bullying their kid every day at school. No idea, because the kid did not come home and tell them. Well, you need to dig so that you
Mm-hmm.
get that information. And so I think that
I agree.
screen time, it's funny how there's screen timers. I don't know about Android, but on iPhones, there is a screen timer, and it's on all iPhones. So it doesn't matter what age you are, you have it. And there's a screen timer. And I was like, so I turned mine off, because I was like, I don't need you to tell me, I'm good. But I think that that is very important for children that now have, these devices. They need to have a screen timer, so that they, this is this much. And not to mention, especially since they're not necessarily wearing the glasses to protect their vision, you looking at screens all day, you gonna wear glasses for, starting at a very young age for the rest of your life. So you need to cut down on the screen
Mm-hmm.
time. I met a little boy that is 2. No,
Mm-hmm.
yes, 2. He turned 2 in March, and I met him in June. And that little boy was so brilliant. And he speaks Spanish and English. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, he is just smart, like as a whip. We went to 2 museums together, me and his parents and him, and I was just like blown away. The little boy's pointing at things and saying what it is, and me and him were in the back seat, and he was looking at this little leaflet and was like, pizza. And then I was like, but wait, you just turned 2. Like, wait a minute, what? And so his mother told me he does not have a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
The only place that he uses a tablet is when he's visiting his
Mm-hmm.
grandparents. And she was like, but they don't have a tablet in their home for him. And she said, we read books and we do flashcards. And I was like, is that the difference? Because I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this little boy is brilliant. But it was, and she said it was because they use books and cards, no, and flashcards. And I was like, well, maybe there's something to be said about that. But and I
There's
understand
something
not
else to it.
everyone, right? And I know everyone doesn't have two parents in the household, and and not necessarily, maybe there's two working parents too, and but you got to figure out some way where you're not sending kids always to a TV or to a screen, because there is so many crazy things that go on, and they don't need to always be on devices, especially when you see now when you go to school, most of the schools are requiring a laptop and a tab, all these things. So if you're on devices all day at school, then you don't need to be at home on them too. So yeah, so there has to be some sort of balance, of course, and because like you said, I mean, let's think about it, it's 2024, but where is technology going to be in 10 years? It's very important that the children do know how to use these things. Very important. It's just they need to be safe with it. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you and your input today. The Black Doctors Speak podcast is presented by the African American Wellness Project and in partnership with the 7TP's youth program. For more information, visit gowellness.org, and you can find Dr. Bernada Baker at Bernada Baker, BERNADA, Baker, BAKER.com. And we will have that information in the show notes as well. Thank you.